A new UW-Madison survey shows that an alarming number of college students want free speech curtailed, and significantly more female students want to force free speech restrictions than men. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the consequence, among other things, of years of feminist posturing, teaching young girls that gender trumps logic and that women who can't win arguments with men can censor them and blame it on toxic masculinity. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program yet uncensored that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start by discussing the results of a disturbing new survey that finds that 63% of college students believe government should punish those who engage in quote-unquote hate speech, even though these kids are unable to define hate speech. Anybody really is unable to define it. It's kind of like pornography. Whatever the left doesn't like, they label it that way. And getting into the story here, this was going to be a much bigger deal last week when we found this story. But now that Parler has actually been pulled off the air, because, it provides a forum for people to plot against the government. Because now that you're engaging in really serious forms of censorship, you've got big tech companies without any consequence simply destroying an entity for opinions. I'm not sure it's that big of a deal. I mean, it's nice to know that 63% of college kids want to crush free speech, but boy, seems like the course is really out of the barn already, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it looks like, I guess, we knew even going into what happened with last week and this week and continuing on. This is just a continuation of everything that's been happening for years and years. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's actually reached a tipping point or if we're way past it. Time will tell, I guess. But specifically to this study that UW-Madison did, it was the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership, and it was in partnership with the UW Survey Center. So they took a look at 530 undergraduate students, and they came up with this study called The First Amendment Under Stress, a survey of UW-Madison students' views on free speech and religious liberties. Blah, 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 blah. They don't like free speech. That's what it boils down to.
This is Ryan Owens, who's the director of the Tommy Thompson Center, at least for now. I think he's stepping down from that position, using the resources of that organization to go ahead and put the survey together. And I love the idea. Again, the title says the freedom of speech is under stress. What do we say in the broader world? Freedom of expression is now largely dead, right? And so, I guess what I would say about this to start our talk, and Katie's going to read you some of the shocking numbers in this, is I guess we shouldn't be surprised. For years and years and years, the public universities, colleges, even the middle schools and high schools have been softening the country up to this idea that particularly any speech that the left doesn't like is censorable. And I want to make this very clear. How many horrible things have been said about conservatives since Donald Trump took presidency? How many hats have been ripped off of heads? How many protests have been interrupted? How many bricks and rocks and stones thrown? How many horrible things have Democrat legislators said about the need to stomp out conservatism, to wipe out Trumpism? The things that have been said have been shocking, and not one of them have been censored. And yet now, the censorship has been transformed, right? An open platform like Parler that gives people a chance, liberal and conservative, to talk without censoring, the platform censoring them. Mainly as an individual on Twitter, on Parler, you can censor somebody you don't like. What a system. They let everybody speak, and if you don't like what somebody says, you can silence it. That's not good enough anymore. And, the idea that this has descended in the way it's descended on this country so quickly, I mean, the future is pretty bleak, because now you've got generations of kids coming through the schools who are convinced that this is the right way to go, that anybody, again, this is the thing, hate speech. Hate speech now has been redefined exclusively to anything the left doesn't like. Anything you want to say about Trump is fine. Any slur, you want to punch him in the face, all that stuff's acceptable. Just don't do it back at Democrats.
And it's important to note that it's not just free speech that they looked at. This is the entire First Amendment. And if you know anything about the entire First Amendment, there's actually 5 little parts that go into that, including all of these people's rights to protest and to assemble, but politics. So let's take a look specifically at what are, basically the summary of what the students had said. About nearly 40% of the students actually believe that the government should restrict the speech of climate change deniers, because that's one of the hot button topics, if you will, climate change. Then we have more than 50% of the students believing that the government should restrict the speech of racially insensitive people. Again, race, always race, class, gender, always the three big ones. 63% believe the government should punish the hate speech, as you mentioned, and hate speech, we don't even know what that means.
No one's defined it, nope.
And then more than 35% believe that public institutions should be allowed to revoke invitations to speakers who might offend someone.
Have you ever in your long life met a radical lefty who wasn't offended all the time?
98% of the time.
So to be a leftist is to be offended by our very existence as non-leftists. So that right there qualifies.
And then the final one in the summary, at least, is that 53% of these students believe that employers' religious beliefs should give way when it comes to providing goods or services like, contraceptives or abortion coverage that violate their religious beliefs. So you're free to exercise your religion except when you can't.
I still am waiting for somebody to walk into a Muslim bakery and demand a Hanukkah cake. I'm waiting for that day, because according to these, I guarantee you all of those kids, and especially all of those young women who were almost oversampled in this, as talking to Ryan, they couldn't insist for gender balance. It turned out that more women responded significantly more women responded to the survey than men did. But I'd like to say to them all again, that's the kind of thing that you wouldn't stand for, right? If you tell a Wiccan group, right, that they're going to have to cater to intolerant Christian groups and the way they buy and sell, I think these women would immediately change their minds. They can't imagine. They're so limited in their political and experiential horizons that they can't imagine a circumstance when it would ever be turned back on them. That's what's so sad about this. The ability to see the consequences of this, the ability to put yourself in the place of somebody else, has all been washed away with all of this sanctimonious liberal progressive crap. This is what happens when schools become monoliths. As a matter of fact, we've got a short interview with Ryan Owens. I had a nice chance to talk to him about this, and I think you're going to find this next minute-long clip interesting.
The thing is the First Amendment isn't political in its own nature. It's not a partisan entity, right? So supporting the First Amendment doesn't make you a Democrat, doesn't make you a Republican. It makes you an American. And that's something that we have to wrap our heads around. What I'm hearing right now is there are a lot of students who said that they find the report to be hurtful. And that's fine. Okay, so it's hurtful. But the fact of the matter is the First Amendment is there for a reason. Yes, it often gets invoked when you are protecting the speech of disgusting, hateful people. And it's not as though people who support the First Amendment are out there because they believe in this hateful speech. Rather, we're there because we know historically that governments snuff out the views of their opposition whenever they're able to do it. And historically, it's been the majority with power that will stifle the free speech rights of those who are out of power.
Ryan starts out by saying that supporting free speech, and it doesn't make you a Democrat or a Republican, it makes you an American. Whoa. I mean, is what we're seeing now, but I mean, as what we're seeing now with almost all the Democrat Party aligned behind the suppression of voices like Parler. Is that true anymore? It seems to me that supporting free speech is a very narrow conservative value now.
No, like that as a statement should be like not the more you know thing.
Right.
I mean, but that used to just be like, duh.
It's a great statement
now it's like,
of
whoa,
what we used to be.
Exactly.
And we're not that anymore.
And since we're talking about how dumb we are, just know that rocks are racist. At UW-Madison, back on the Badger campus, Chancellor Rebecca Blank agrees, and she actually caved to the mob.
Spelunked?
She spelunked and then decided that, yes, rocks are racist. So there's a 70-ton boulder, okay? It sits on Observatory Hill. There it is. Look at it. clearly it's racist and it needs to be removed.
It's making me uncomfortable by the
Is
way
it?
it stares into my soul and hates me for my chromosomes.
It is.
It just stares right into my soul. Look,
Look,
it's exposed me.
It's also throwing shade at you.
It's throwing shade at me. Its weight reminds me that I'm a fatty fat.
There you
I
go.
mean, there's everything about that rock that just torments me.
Okay, well, I'm guessing you're on the side of the mob then, because
No,
this is Chamberlain Rock.
Chamberlain.
It actually has a name. It was named after geologist and former university president Thomas Crowder Chamberlain. Now, here's the big story of it. Students at UW-Madison aren't studying for anything. They're not, trying to be, critical thinkers. Instead, what they're doing is digging up history about these boulders and finding out that, yes, they are racist, because one time, this rock specifically was referred to as it was being dug out of the hill as an N-word head. Okay? It's a commonly used expression back in the 1920s to describe any large, dark rock. So it was printed one time in a 1925 headline in the Wisconsin State Journal. There are no other references to the rock with the
Ever.
N-word head. But, of course, back in the summer, 2020, oh, what a summer it wasn't.
100 years ago, someone referred to it as N blank rock.
And it was printed in a headline. One time.
And that poor rock is now being banned.
Yep.
Does that mean the Dome of the Rock, where the holiest site of Islam, does that mean that rock is also N blank rock and therefore must be done away with?
Well, is it a large, dark
It's
rock?
a large, dark rock, people at Madison.
So there's that.
But see, there's one time in print where this See, I thought they were going to come after the name of the guy. That maybe the geologist it was named after was
no.
a racist. His middle name, after all, is Crowder, like more kraut. Maybe he's a big Nazi or something like that. Or maybe
be.
Chamberlain. Maybe it was never Chamberlain's grandson. Appeasement. No, they come after the rock because of a one-time name.
In a headline in the Wisconsin State Journal. So basically, this last summer, the Wisconsin Black Student Union and the Wunk Sheik, WUNK, Wunk Sheik, is a Native American student organization on campus. They made a push for the rock's removal. Now, they claimed it is a daily reminder of the injustices students of color have faced on predominantly white campus. Let's take a look at the rock. There it is again.
So it's not near the buildings. It's off on its.
It's on Observatory Hill.
Right.
It's up on the hill. And how is it a daily reminder when you walk by that rock? How it doesn't say N-word head on the rock anywhere?
Never has.
Does it say?
Nope.
They had to, again, go spelunking
Yep.
for this information to find this out. Instead of studying or doing anything important with their lives, this is what they're doing.
This is not purging campuses of racist symbols. This is leveling everything because you have the power to do so. This is a radical erasure of campus culture. This is a radical erasure of the long and storied history of UW-Madison's campus. That's all it is, because they can. And Rebecca Blank, you should be sadly ashamed of yourself. Mm-hmm. When they were coming for the famous Lincoln statue, you did a very weak-kneed thing. You refused to move it, which I suppose is better than some idiots. But you also did not say you would defend it. You literally gave an open statement, Chancellor, that that you personally wanted to see it stay, that you were going to let the Lincoln, how big of you, let an iconic statue of Lincoln stay where it stands on campus. But what you didn't say is what you would do to those who attacked it. So any self-gratifying liberal who wants to attack the statue, you and I both know, Miss Blank, that you're not going to do much about it. But that was Lincoln. And Lincoln has a perilously, apparently, liberals keep telling us, just fraught racist history. Yep. That poor rock didn't do anything to anybody. That rock never said a word. What is your rationale that you're okay with Lincoln staying, but not the rock? That makes no sense at all.
Well, what's interesting about this, and I hope it would be a nice slap in the face, is it's not quite removed yet, maybe because it's 70 tons, but also because they actually have to go to the Wisconsin Historical Society and talk to them, because the boulder is located on or near a Native American burial site. So the Wisconsin Historical Society needs to sign off, and all the Native tribes of Wisconsin need to be notified and given time to provide input. And I hope that they're like, this is insanity. There are many tribes in Wisconsin, so they have to contact all of them to provide their input. We'll see what actually happens, but if this all goes smoothly, unlike the rock, it will be out by summer. And don't worry, the cost is only $30,000 to $75,000. But don't worry, it's not coming out of taxpayer money. Of course, it's going to be private gift funds.
Yes, I'd like to donate to remove the rock. Why don't they just take the rock to diversity training, maybe arrange a trip for the rock to the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., take it on the circuit, educate the rock. I mean, let the rock have a chance at redemption. What are they going to do, break it into a bunch of little rocks?
How dare they?
What are they going to do with it?
I don't know. That poor rock. Well, the Rock at UW-Madison's racist, but we have a whole bunch of racists all around the country, including at the University of Florida. They're a bunch of racists, too. The anthropology department, of all the departments we could name, decided, you know what, let's have a virtual town hall for a certain course with some of our students, and we're going to invite everyone. But if you're white, then not so much you, even though look at that invitation. Looks pretty white to me. So there's an event. It was organized by 2 of the PhD students, and all the students who were enrolled in their course then got this invite email saying, come on down. And it was actually specifically addressed to the BIPOC, the Black, Indigenous, People of Color students. And it stated, we have some amazing graduate students in anthropology that are holding a virtual town hall to discuss future directions and goals for a BIPOC anthropology group, open to non-anthro BIPOC majors and minors. To ensure this event is a safe space, organizers are asking that you reach out to them for the Zoom link. Okay, sounds fine and dandy. Whatever. But then their email goes on to say a little bit more. You want me to read that now?
Sure.
An important message from the organizers. We kindly remind all that you respond to this space is only for those who identify as a BIPOC individual in this department. While we appreciate white students may want to join to learn more about the BIPOC perspective, we ask they respect this space as a chance for BIPOC students to come together as BIPOC. We cannot hide our skin color and Michael Jackson. And for this reason, we already navigate the University of Florida as BIPOC, surrounded by a majority white student body and faculty body. We ask white students to respect that this is a space where BIPOC students can come together without the need to perform any emotional or mental labor to explain their experiences as BIPOC. Additionally, we acknowledge colorism exists within our own BIPOC communities, and therefore we kindly ask of all BIPOC students to be mindful that we will be a diverse group of BIPOC students, and it is expected we will respect differences in experiences due to colorism.
Unless you're white.
How many times did I just say BIPOC?
And unless you're white.
Kindly respect BIPOC. That's the whole...
Well, I like
BIPOC.
the fact that if you identify as BIPOC, you don't even... What happened to the word R?
But we ask they kindly and respect the space.
But my point is,
It doesn't...
anybody who identifies as BIPOC. Do you see we are no longer, because of how the left has destroyed language, you could no longer say people who are BIPOC. Because somebody who wants to be, but isn't, must be allowed in. And again, 50 white kids should show up and say, according to your document, I identify as such, and you can't do a damn thing about it. Colorism.
Colorism, yes, they are bringing that out now. Colorism, it's going to be the new thing, because BIPOC wasn't even a thing until they made it a thing, and now colorism, that's going to be the new thing. But they're saying that we want it to be a safe space, and we want this space so you don't have to perform any emotional or mental labor, but then also perform some mental labor, be mindful of this BIPOC. So even within their statements, they can't be like I am. It's I me, and there's wishy-washy over it.
As much as they use the words BIPOC 8,000 times,
yes,
they can't say people who are BIPOC. And the other thing is that notice, speaking of wishy-washy, do you notice how they just absolutely cannot in any way, shape, or form get beyond the idea that simply to be around white people is a huge mental exertion. If being in a room with somebody who looks different than you so taxes your brain, it probably means you're a bigot, right? I mean, isn't that standard operating procedure? That if you're so nonplussed to be around primarily white anthropology students who are bending over backward to kiss your black butts, right? If you know anything about college kids, right? I guarantee you these white anthropology kids aren't walking around with racial chips on their shoulder looking for somebody to lynch. No, they're ready to pucker up and kiss any part of the BIPOC anatomy necessary to be taken as serious, because evidently you and you alone, BIPOC people, get to decide.
for some real education, the Yellow Christ is an 1889 painting by Paul Gauguin and one of the key works of symbolism in painting. It was painted in Pont-Aven and based on the crucifix in Tremolo. Gauguin, who was born in 1848 and died in 1903, was an important figure in the symbolist movement as a painter, a sculptor, a printmaker, a ceramist, and a writer.
Well, Gauguin, of course, is one of the master movers of him and Monet. They're among the most recognizable names of the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist movements. Gauguin, of course, is fallen on hard times in the critical academy. He left Europe and went to Tahiti, as you might know, went to the very, very warm tropical place and painted many, many pictures of naked Indian girls, native Indian girls or indigenous persons. And that's got all the ire incensed against Gauguin for sexualizing these native peoples. But this is a particularly interesting, I think, image of his from painting. All right, this is the Yellow Christ. And it really does have, look at the depth in that painting and look at the planes. There are so many planes to talk about. There is the picture of the Christ, who seems to be almost floating on top of the picture. Then you've got the bucolic nature of the Breton region in which this church that housed a yellow crucifix, where it was from. You see all that depth and all that pastoral landscape. And then in the foreground, you have Breton peasant women who are as if they are at church worshiping. There are so many levels. You got literally the church. The church impinges at the front bottom of your screen, the front bottom of the picture where they're worshiping. Then there's the Christ there, who belongs as much to the countryside as he belongs to the church, but doesn't seem to really belong here anywhere. It's an interesting portrayal of the cross. Go back to the second picture, Mike. Show the actual picture. This is a cross. The yellow cross that is in a Tremolo a church, a little just hole-in-the-wall church. It's been there for a long time. Gauguin, when he was in the region, he would go to that church and he would just obsessed about it, become more and more obsessed about the yellow Christ. Turned it into that work of art that we see here. Did a wonderful job with this. And so bound up in his psyche was this yellow Christ that he actually painted a picture of himself with the yellow cross. So really interesting stuff. Lots and lots of layers of meaning here, and a nice, robust look at Gauguin's playing around with all sorts of lenses, if you will, when it comes to his own Impressionism.
Now, as we do from time to time here at the Dr. Duke Show, we want to take a moment, show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, we're giving a shout out to Dusty from Greeley, Colorado, all the way out there in the West. Thank you for supporting us. And hey, if you're a fan of this show, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support the Patriot Club, and we're going to send you a life-altering tumbler. Trust me, it is life-altering. It's a true story. Now, all you have to do to sign up is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. And we're going to wrap things up as we do with our fun fact of the day. Since we're speaking of rocks today, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wasn't always The Rock. Initially, he was not. Back in college at the University of Miami, his football teammates actually called him Dewey after hearing Johnson's parents call him that.
And that's our show for today. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.